The Trojan War is one of the most famous stories from ancient Greek mythology. It is a long tale full of heroes, gods' battles, love, betrayal, and dramatic events. Even though the story is myth, it has shaped much of Western literature and culture. The main sources of the story are ancient works by the poet Homer, especially the Iliad and the Odyssey. Over many centuries, other writers added more details to the story, so what we now call the Trojan War is really a collection of different tales joined together. The story may have some connection to real historical events, but most of what we know is myth. Still, it remains powerful because it explores human emotions, love, anger, pride, and grief in ways that feel true even today. The story of the Trojan War begins long before the fighting itself. It starts with an argument among the gods. According to the myth, a goddess named Eris, who represented discord or trouble, was angry because she was not invited to a wedding on Mount Olympus. To cause chaos, she threw a golden apple into the party. On the apple, she wrote the words, "For the fairest." Three powerful goddesses Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite all claimed that the apple belonged to them. None of them would accept defeat, and the other gods were afraid to judge who was the fairest, because choosing one meant upsetting the other two. So the gods decided that a mortal man should make the decision. They chose Paris, a young prince from the city of Troy. The goddesses tried to bribe him. Hera offered him political power and control over many lands. Athena offered him great wisdom and skill in war. Aphrodite, the goddess of love, promised him the most beautiful woman in the world. Paris chose Aphrodite, and this decision angered Hera and Athena deeply. They swore they would punish Paris and his city when the time came. Aphrodite had promised Paris the most beautiful woman alive. This woman was Helen, the queen of Sparta and the wife of King Menelaus. But Aphrodite did not care that Helen was already married. Through magic or possibly through Helen's own desire, Aphrodite helped Paris take Helen away from Sparta and bring her to Troy. Some versions say Helen fell in love with Paris. Others say she was taken against her will. Either way, Helen's disappearance became the spark that started the entire Trojan War. The Greeks believed strongly in hospitality and loyalty. To take a man's wife was considered a huge insult. Menelaus called on all the Greek leaders who had once promised to help defend Helen's marriage. These leaders came from many different Greek kingdoms. They included famous heroes such as Odysseus, who was known for his clever mind, Ajax, a strong warrior, Nestor, an old and wise leader, and above all, Agamemnon, Menelaus's brother and the king of Mycenae. Agamemnon became the commander of the Greek armies. Together, these leaders gathered a fleet of ships and soldiers and set out to Troy to bring Helen back. The journey itself was not simple. The Greek fleet could not sail at first because the winds refused to blow. A prophet told Agamemnon that he had angered the goddess Artemis, and that he had to sacrifice his daughter Iphigenia to make the winds return. In some versions, he actually kills her. In others, the goddess saves her at the last moment. Either way, this event shows how the gods influenced every stage of the war. When the Greeks finally reached Troy, they set up camp along the coastline. The war did not happen quickly. In fact, the Trojan War was said to last 10 years. Troy was a rich and strong city with tall walls that could not be easily broken. The Trojans had brave warriors, such as Hector, Paris's older brother, and the greatest fighter in Troy. They also had the support of many allies from nearby regions. The Greeks, for their part, had their own greatest warrior, Achilles. He was said to be nearly invincible because his mother, a goddess named Thetis, had dipped him in a magical river when he was a baby. But she held him by the heel, leaving that one spot vulnerable. Achilles was proud, fierce, and almost unstoppable in battle. A major portion of the story in the Iliad does not actually cover the entire war, but focuses on one dramatic argument during the 10th year. The Greeks had captured a town and taken 2 women as prizes. Agamemnon received one woman, Chrysaem, and Achilles received another named Briseis. However, when Agamemnon was forced to return Chrysaem to her father, he demanded Achilles give up Briseis to make up for his loss. He believed that Agamemnon did not respect him, even though Achilles was the one winning most of the battles. Feeling insulted, Achilles refused to fight. He and his personal group of warriors stayed away from battle. Without Achilles, the Greeks suffered heavy losses. The Trojans, led by Hector, pushed the Greeks back toward their ships. Things became so desperate that Achilles' close friend Patroclus put on Achilles' armor and went into battle to scare the Trojans. It worked for a while, but tragically, Hector killed Patroclus, believing he had killed Achilles himself. When Achilles learned that Hector had killed Patroclus, he was overwhelmed with grief and rage. He decided to return to battle, even though he knew that doing so would eventually lead to his own death. His mother warned him, but Achilles no longer cared about his own fate. He only wanted to avenge his friend. Achilles fought with incredible fury and killed many Trojan warriors. Finally, he found Hector outside the gates of Troy. The two men faced each other in a dramatic duel. Despite Hector's courage, he could not stand against Achilles, who killed him. Afterwards, Achilles tied Hector's body to his chariot and dragged it around the walls of Troy, an act that shocked even the gods. Eventually, Priam, the king of Troy and Hector's father, came to Achilles at night to beg for his son's body. This meeting is one of the most powerful moments in the story. Achilles, moved by Priam's grief, agreed to return Hector's body for a proper funeral. This showed that even in a war filled with violence and hatred, there were moments of compassion and humanity. After Hector's death, the war continued, but the tide had turned in favor of the Greeks. Still, the Trojans fought bravely. Achilles killed many more warriors, but eventually his own fate caught up with him. Paris, who was not a strong fighter, shot an arrow that was guided by the god Apollo. The arrow struck Achilles in his heel, the one part of his body that was not protected. Achilles died, and the Greeks mourned the loss of their greatest hero. After his death, there was a dispute among the Greeks over who should receive Achilles' armor. The two main candidates were Ajax and Odysseus. Odysseus, known for his intelligence and speech, won the contest. Ajax was so humiliated that he went mad and took his own life. These events highlighted the increasing tension and exhaustion among the Greek leaders, who had now been fighting for a decade. With Achilles gone, the Greeks needed a new plan to win the war. The city of Troy still stood strong and its walls remained unbroken. At this point, Odysseus proposed a clever idea, the famous Trojan Horse. The Greeks built a large wooden horse and hid a group of soldiers inside it. Then they pretended to give up the war. They burned their tents and sailed away, leaving the horse behind as an apparent offering to the gods. The Trojans saw the horse and debated what to do with it. Some, like the priest Laocoon, warned that it might be a trick. He said, "Beware of Greeks bearing gifts." But at that moment, two giant sea serpents appeared and killed Laocoon and his sons. The Trojans interpreted this as a sign that the gods wanted them to bring the horse inside the city. So despite their doubts, they pulled the horse through the gates and celebrated the end of the war. That night, while the people of Troy slept, the Greek ships returned quietly. The soldiers hidden inside the horse climbed out, opened the gates and signaled the rest of the Greek army. The Greeks stormed the city, catching the Trojans completely by surprise. The city was burned, King Priam was killed, and the survivors were taken prisoner. Helen was brought back to Greece, although what happened to her afterward varies across different versions of the myth. The Trojan War did not end the suffering for many of the Greeks. The journey home for several of the heroes became its own series of adventures. Odysseus, for example, took 10 more years to return home, facing monsters, shipwrecks, and magical beings along the way, a story told in the Odyssey. Agamemnon returned home only to be murdered by his wife, who was angry about the sacrifice of their daughter. These stories show that war's consequences last far beyond the battlefield. The myth of the Trojan War has lasted for thousands of years because it explores timeless themes. It shows the danger of pride, the pain of loss, the importance of friendship, and the power of both love and hatred. It also reflects the ancient Greek belief that humans live at the mercy of the gods, whose decisions can shape or destroy entire cities. Many modern books, movies, poems, and artworks continue to retell the story of Troy. Some versions change the details, but the heart of the story remains the same: a war caused by human desires and divine arguments, full of brave acts and tragic outcomes. Whether or not a real war behind the legend truly occurred, the mythic Trojan War has become a symbol of heroism, tragedy, and the complex nature of human conflict.